Dear students, I am talking about current consensus in diagnosis and management of sensitive and drug resistance cases of spinal tuberculosis. Now, I would suggest that these are, as a student of the orthopedics, you must read these two review articles. One published in 2010, which gives whatever consensus has been achieved till 2010 and whatever controversies and unresolved issues remaining. Next 10 years down the line, another review article was published in 2020 in Journal Bone Joint Surgery. Again, in this article, we moved on adding the consensus achieved from the previous article, and whatever are the gray areas still remains unresolved. Now, it's nice to understand how we have evolved in diagnosis and management of TB spine, and the main landmark has been introduction of anti-tubercular treatment. The introduction of anti-tubercular treatment has improved outcome of the TB cases, and that is why the diagnosis and management of TB spine is divided as a pre-chemotherapy era and a post-chemotherapy era. Now, with better diagnostic, imaging and pathological diagnostics, development in better surgical facilities, and implant use is the recent time. So, that is how we divide the evolution into practically three era: pre-chemotherapy, post-chemotherapy, and the current latest. So, the goal of treatment of TB spine in a pre-chemotherapy era, that is before 1950, when they were treated with sanatoria, and the healing of lesion with a natural healing was the expected outcome, and the end point in most of 50%, around 50% cases was death or a severely crippled life. While 1950 onward, when ATT was introduced and the surgery was also introduced by Hodgson's by developing transthoracic anterior decompression, and he advocated surgery for all cases of TB spine. Then on, another group of surgeons came which were proponent of extrapleural decompression and surgery for a well-defined specific indications led by Professor Tully as middle path regimen. So, the goal of treatment in post-chemotherapy era was healing of lesion with endpoint as residual kyphosis and sequelae of paraplegia. Now, what are the gaps in the knowledge? And issues were more with the spine, particularly in limited resource country, because we were diagnosing late. So, we want it is best that if they are diagnosed early, so that development of neural complication and development of deformity could be prevented or minimized. Now, once we have suspected, how to ascertain diagnosis, particularly in early cases or in established case. How long to treat? We do not know in a bone joint tuberculosis what is the end point of treatment, healed status. It is not known, and that is why that is again a gap in the knowledge. Neural recovery and principle of treatment, there was an uncertainty, and spinal deformity, how could we prevent, how could we correct? Is there a role of instrumentation in spinal TB is being effective? And drug resistance, not known, it was not known before, but now gradually we have started getting cases of which have failed the conventional ATT. So, we have started suspecting a drug resistance and suspecting and diagnosing them. So, now with time this has become a bigger issue. So, these are the gaps exist in the knowledge. So, with answering these gaps, the current goal of treatment in TB spine is healing of lesion with no or minimal deformity or no sequelae of neural deficit. So, our objective has changed. Now, we know that in a classical cases, TB spine is a clinical diagnosis supported by imaging. With a classical demineralized lesion, fuzzy disc margin, obliteration of disc space, appearance of kyphotic deformity, prevertebral shadow, paravertebral shadow. So, then the diagnosis is clinico-radiologically in a classical lesion. However, till this stage reaches, when this stage reaches, patient remains symptomatic for 6 to 9 months. So, now currently our emphasis is that we want to diagnose early, so that development of deformity, obvious deformity like this, and neural deficit could be prevented, could be avoided. We no longer wait till the classical this lesion develops, because we know that delayed diagnosis adds complication of deformity and add complications of paraplegia. Now, with that objective, we need to understand a pathophysiology, a pathology of the disease. Now, in 98% instances, it is the vertebral body and paradiscal lesion is the most common. So, hence, I am taking with this line diagram, how does the disease evolve in a paradiscal lesion. Now, the lesion starts on both sides of disc spaces. It starts as inflammation, and as a result, gradually continued inflammation produces demineralization of the vertebral body, weakening of subchondral bone here. So, this disc starts herniating into the diseased vertebral body or inflamed vertebral body, and gradually, now patient is symptomatic at this time, but if it is not diagnosed and treated at this stage, so gradually this process continues. There is an obliteration of disc spaces and there is a loss of anterior bony height, and that is why it produces a kyphotic deformity. Now, as a result, by the time a classical deformity appears and retropulsion takes place to produce a neural deficit, patient is symptomatic for many months. Now, somewhere at this stage, when disc has just started herniating, if we take a plain X-rays, one gets a reduction in the disc height. How do we ascertain on a plain X-rays? The disc height should be almost equal to the height above, or should be little more than the height above. Now, keeping that in mind, we know that now this disc space has reduced, disc height has reduced, and this vertebral margins, they are fuzzy. So, by this X-ray finding, we can suspect a spinal TB early. Now, with these clinical predictor, if we get an imaging of any kind, whether it is CT or MRI, well, this bone scan, it used to be an imaging 20 years before in an undiagnosed lesion to localize the lesion, but now with MRI, it has become the gold standard for diagnosis of infective or inflammatory disease, and for that matter in TB spine. So, what is a suspected presumptive case? Patient with persistent localized pain for 6 to 12 weeks or more, with or without constitutional symptom, with or without local tenderness, and with some X-ray pointer, and that is the presumptive case which should be evaluated with MRI. Now, look at this X-ray spine, cervical spine. This patient is symptomatic with the neck pain for 6 weeks or more, and if you look at X-rays, that this cervical lordosis is little obliterated, and here there is a slight increase in prevertebral shadow, or here there is a reduction in the disc height in the dorsal and dorsal lumbar junction. Now, these patients should be evaluated with an MRI.